The sun was just beginning to set over Manila, painting the sky with orange and pink hues as the sound of traffic echoed through the busy streets. In the middle of the noise stood a young boy named Liam, his small frame hidden behind an old guitar that looked almost too big for him. The guitar had scratches and missing strings, but to him, it was a treasure. He sang every day outside a crowded market, his voice carrying emotion that made strangers pause, even if just for a moment. His mother was sick back home, too weak to work, and the few coins he earned singing were their only way to survive. Despite his hardships, there was a spark in his eyes, a dream he never gave up on. He would often tell his mother, "One day, Mama, I will sing on a big stage where lights shine like stars." She would smile weakly and say, "Then sing, Anik, until the world hears you." Every evening, Liam sang songs that told stories of love and loss. But the one song that always drew the biggest crowd was Hotel California. His version wasn't perfect, but it had soul. The tourists who passed by often took videos of him. One day, a kind American tourist recorded him singing and uploaded it online with the caption, "The Filipino boy who sings like an angel." Liam had no idea what the internet really was, and he went home that night with his usual handful of coins. But that video didn't just reach a few people, it went viral across the world. Within days, millions watched the boy with the broken guitar sing with a voice that felt older than his years. Talent agents and reporters began searching for him. When a local news crew finally found Liam, he was speechless as they told him he had been invited to audition for America's Got Talent in Los Angeles. His mother wept tears of joy, thanking God again and again. The people of his neighborhood came together to help. The barber gave him a free haircut, the baker packed bread for his trip, and even strangers donated money so he could afford a passport. The little boy from the streets of Manila was about to chase the dream he had only seen on TV. The journey to America felt like a dream. It was the first time Liam had ever been inside an airplane. As he looked out the window, the clouds looked like mountains of cotton, and he pressed his hands together, whispering a quiet prayer for his mother's health. When he landed in Los Angeles, everything felt overwhelming: the tall buildings, the fast cars, the bright lights. He carried his small bag, the same worn-out clothes, and his mother's rosary tied around his wrist. The morning of his audition, he stood in a long line of contestants from around the world. Everyone seemed confident, holding polished guitars and wearing designer clothes. Liam stood barefoot in simple jeans and a faded shirt, clutching his old guitar tightly. When his name was finally called, he stepped onto the massive stage, his heart pounding. The judges smiled at him warmly, curious about the shy boy standing before them. "What's your name?" Simon asked gently. "My name is Liam, I come from the Philippines," he said nervously. The crowd clapped. "And what will you be singing?" asked Sofia Vergara. He took a deep breath and said, "Hotel California." The first strum of his guitar echoed softly through the theater, shaky but full of feeling. His voice began quiet, trembling, but as the song grew, so did his strength. The audience fell silent. Each lyric came from deep within, every note soaked in the story of his life. By the time he reached the chorus, people were already wiping away tears. Even Simon, known for his tough heart, leaned forward, moved by the raw emotion in the boy's voice. When the final note faded, the crowd rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Simon looked at the other judges, his eyes glistening, then turned to Liam and smiled softly. "You just reminded us why we love music." He reached forward and slammed the golden buzzer. Confetti rained down from the ceiling as Liam stood frozen in shock, tears pouring down his face. He looked up, whispering, "Mama, this is for you." The moment the golden buzzer confetti fell around Liam, his world changed forever. He stood on that stage shaking, holding his guitar as the crowd screamed his name. Simon Cowell walked up to him, giving him a rare hug, whispering something no microphone caught. That night, the clip of the "poor Filipino boy who made Simon cry" flooded the internet. Millions watched, shared, and cried. News stations played it over and over again, calling him the voice of hope. Back in the Philippines, Liam's mother watched from her hospital bed, crying tears of pride. Neighbors crowded around the small TV, cheering and clapping for the boy who had once sung for coins in their alley. Liam had become a symbol of every poor child who dared to dream. But behind the fame, he still felt lost. He was in a foreign land, away from his mother, surrounded by cameras, interviews, and lights that never dimmed. Sometimes, when no one was watching, he would sit in his hotel room and sing softly to himself, missing home and the quiet nights in Manila. He felt the weight of expectation, the fear of not being good enough for the people who now looked up to him. As rehearsals for the semifinals began, Liam struggled. The songs were bigger, the pressure heavier. Producers gave him new arrangements, choreographers asked him to move on stage, and everything started to feel too much. He missed the simplicity of singing on the streets, where all that mattered was emotion. During one rehearsal, he broke down crying in front of the team. Simon, who had been watching quietly from the corner, walked up to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't forget who you are, Liam," Simon said softly. "You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. Sing like the boy who sang to his mother every night." Those words hit deep. That night, Liam called his mother through a poor video connection. She smiled weakly on the tiny screen, telling him she was proud no matter what happened. He promised her he would sing again, not to impress anyone, but to make her heart proud. When the night of the semifinals arrived, the arena was packed. The stage was darker than before, with soft blue lights shining down as Liam stepped forward holding his guitar. He took a deep breath and told the judges, "This song is for my mama." The music began, the soft, emotional opening of "You Raise Me Up." His voice carried pain, love, and hope all at once. Every word felt like it came straight from his soul. The audience was silent, mesmerized. Some closed their eyes, others held their hands to their hearts. By the second chorus, even the judges had tears rolling down their faces. When the final note faded, the crowd erupted into a thunderous standing ovation that lasted for minutes. Simon looked at him, eyes red, and said, "You have a gift that doesn't come from training or fame. It comes from love." Liam smiled through his tears, whispering, "Thank you." He had made it to the finals. But joy turned into worry soon after. Just days before the final performance, Liam received a call from his neighbor in the Philippines. His mother's health had worsened, and she had been taken to the hospital again. He felt his heart sink. He wanted to fly back immediately, but his mother insisted he stay. "Don't come home yet, Anik," she said weakly. "Sing one last time for me." He promised her he would. The day of the finals came, and though his heart was heavy, his spirit burned brighter than ever. He decided to sing Hotel California again, the song that had started it all. This time, a full orchestra joined him, but his guitar remained the centerpiece. When he began, the audience knew it wasn't just another performance. His voice carried the weight of love, loss, and hope. The notes soared through the air like a prayer. When he reached the last line, his voice cracked slightly, but it only made the performance more real. The crowd stood as one, cheering and crying. Simon walked up to the stage, wrapped his arms around Liam, and whispered, "You just made history." As the lights faded, Liam looked up toward the sky and said quietly, "This is for you, Mama." The final night of America's Got Talent felt like a dream wrapped in nerves and electricity. The theater glowed brighter than ever before, filled with fans, flashing cameras, and an energy that could be felt in the air. Liam stood backstage, his small hands trembling around the neck of his guitar. He could hear the muffled cheers from the audience and the voice of the host building the suspense for his performance. Every beat of his heart reminded him of home, his mother's face, her frail smile, her words echoing in his mind, "Sing for me, Anik." When his name was announced, he stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding him for a moment. The crowd erupted in cheers, many waving small Filipino flags. He smiled nervously, whispered a prayer under his breath, and took his place at the microphone. The orchestra behind him waited in silence. Then, with one soft strum, the first familiar notes of Hotel California filled the room. From the very first line, it was clear this performance was different. Liam didn't just sing the song, he lived it. His voice had matured through pain and growth, carrying a depth that reached every heart in the audience. The orchestra swelled gently behind him, yet his simple guitar chords stood out, raw and honest. As he sang, the screen behind him showed images of his journey, the streets of Manila, his mother smiling in bed, the moment Simon pressed the golden buzzer. It felt like his whole life flashing before everyone's eyes. Halfway through the song, his voice quivered slightly, but he held strong, closing his eyes and letting the music take over. The audience sat frozen, many with tears streaming down their faces. By the final chorus, people stood one by one, applauding even before he finished. When the last note faded into silence, there was a heartbeat of quiet, then a thunder of cheers that shook the stage. Simon stood up first, clapping slowly, eyes shining. "Liam," he said softly, "you reminded us that music is not about fame or money, it's about truth. You just gave the performance of your life." The other judges nodded in agreement, some too emotional to speak. Liam bowed deeply, clutching his guitar as tears fell down his cheeks. He walked off stage to a roar of applause, greeted by the host, who said, "You might have just won the world's heart tonight." Back in the Philippines, the entire neighborhood was watching live on a small projector. When they saw his performance, people cheered in the streets, fireworks lighting the sky. His mother lay in her hospital bed, smiling weakly as she whispered, "My boy did it." The next night, the grand results show arrived. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. The finalists stood on stage, lights flashing, the audience holding their breath. Terry Crews held the golden envelope, his voice deep and dramatic. "The winner of America's Got Talent 2025 is," he paused for what felt like forever, then shouted, "Liam Santos." Confetti burst into the air, music played, and the entire arena exploded in cheers. Liam froze for a moment, unable to believe what he'd just heard. Then he dropped to his knees, clutching his guitar, crying uncontrollably. Simon walked onto the stage, hugging him tightly as the crowd chanted his name. The other contestants surrounded him, lifting him in celebration. It was a moment that felt larger than life, a poor boy from the streets of Manila, now standing as the winner of one of the world's biggest shows. Weeks later, Liam returned home to the Philippines with the trophy in hand. Cameras followed him as he stepped out of the airport, greeted by hundreds of fans holding signs that said, "Welcome home, Liam." He rushed straight to the hospital to see his mother. She was weak but smiling, her eyes full of pride. He placed the trophy in her hands and whispered, "We did it, Mama." Tears rolled down her face as she hugged him tightly. With his prize money, Liam paid for her treatment, rebuilt their small house, and bought a new guitar, this time not broken but shining and perfect. Still, he never forgot where he came from. He started a small music school for poor kids, giving them instruments and hope. The media called him the Golden Buzzer Angel. Years later, in interviews, when people asked him what kept him going, he always smiled and said, "My mother's love and a broken guitar taught me that dreams are real if you sing them loud enough."